We have 2 nominees, and we're going to do the winner of Fighter of the Year.
We'll go third place first.
We're going to do third place because this is the one we agree on. The top 2 were a bit. It depends on what you rate and you
the
value.
Criteria. Yeah.
Yeah. What is the real value in Fighter of the Year? So the third one is an easy one. We're going to do Jan Blachowicz.
Yep. By far, he should. I mean, had not these other 2 fighters done what they did this year, I mean, Jan Blachowicz should probably be number 1. It's just being the first light heavyweight champion that's not Cormier or Jones in like 9 years is a pretty big deal. Did he win it off of either of those guys? No, but what he did do to affirm his position as the king of that division was beat convincingly the guy who
may
the
have
former
beaten
champion
Jones.
who most people thought that Reyes beat John Jones, and then fucking Jan Blachowicz being a pretty big underdog in that fight when they had vacated the title, bollocked him from pillar to post. I mean, it was competitive, and then it just wasn't, man. He took maybe 1 or 2 body kicks, and then suddenly Reyes was just backing off, just didn't want nothing to do with him.
Blachowicz left a map of Poland on the side of his body.
Absolutely.
And his nose
that
was pointing. It was not
Not
pointing
due north,
straight.
south,
It was not
Looks
pointing
like Jack
straight after
Sparrow's
that
fucking
fight.
compass on his face, man.
Yeah,
It was rough.
there was a lot of damage real
And
quick.
not only that, he knocked out Reyes, who gave Jones his hardest fight, debatably. And before that, he'd knocked out Corey Anderson, who was on a 4-fight win streak.
Yeah.
Who's now been shipped over to Bellator.
Yeah.
Well done for your nomination.
Yeah, I mean,
Jan
that's
Blachowicz.
a great to get 2 knockouts in a year in I guess not in title fights, but just like pretty much a number 1 contenders fight, knockout,
And to become the champion.
avenging a loss he'd already gotten against Corey Anderson, like maybe several years ago, and doing it emphatically like that.
Yeah.
And then like beating Dominic Reyes the way that he did. I mean, how can you not give that guy
Comeback almost.
pretty much one of the spots in Fighter of the Year, I believe.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to see him.
And he's got another huge fight, man, because like if he's fighting Israel Adesanya, the middleweight champion, in March, I believe. So
yeah, it's paid off for him. Yeah.
that if he beats Izzy, I mean,
Oh my
he's lining himself up for some pretty juicy fights in the future. I think if he beats Izzy, John Jones will return to light heavyweight just to prove a point. And I mean, if he beats Izzy, what's to say that he can't beat Jones too, man?
100%.
Well done.
That Polish power is something to behold. Can't wait to see my boy Jan.
This one for Fighter of the Year, because we're torn.
We
go
It's
either
torn.
way.
It's
It's
tough,
really
man.
torn.
All right,
So
lay out the...
we'll say them both. All right. So
Okay.
the Fighters of the Year, Davison Figueiredo or Kevin Holland. I'm going to state my case with Kevin Holland, and that is he had more wins in the year, and also 4 out of his 5 wins were finishes, KOs. So he went 5-0 this year, 1 split with the dentist, Darren Stewart, and then he had 4 other KO wins.
And he weighed in 6 times at 185 because he was scheduled to fight Trevin Giles, and Trevin Giles pulled out the day of the fight, and he offered to fight your boy, what's his name? The slowest fighter on the roster, Ed Herman, at light heavyweight on literally a couple hours' notice. Like literally, as the card was going, like I'll fight Ed Herman because Gerald Mearshart fell out of that fight.
Ed Hermit.
Dude, yeah,
Fucking
Ed
Herman
Herman
Crab,
being the
fucking
slowest.
Homer
slow.
Simpson, dude.
Yeah,
Homer Simpson.
that's a baller move, man, and that's an absolute. Of course, that's a candidate for Fighter of the Year.
The guy's a baller,
5-0
dude.
in COVID from May to December.
Yeah.
is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, he didn't even start January, February, March. Dude, he started in May. He's got 5 wins from May.
Yeah. Fluffy
till
Hernandez, knockout.
Yeah.
Joaquin Buckley, who has the KO of the year, he knocked him out in his debut. Decision,
Darren Stewart.
Darren Stewart won the first 2 rounds and then lost the second round. He got the win, but he could have been a draw had that the third round been scored as a 10-8. So it was pretty close. So that maybe be the one blemish. He still did win.
You got Jacare in there at the
And
at
then,
the end, and then the
he
fourth
fought-
one was
No, the fourth one was on Taveros.
Charles Ontiveros.
Slammed him and I think fucking injured his neck. So
Yeah.
that fight was ruled a submission, but I think it should be kind of a TKO of some sort. Very quickly, that kid was debuting too. I think it was a short notice fight. And then he took the fight with, who was he meant to fight? Hermanson, wasn't it? I think he was meant to fight
he was
Hermanson,
gonna-
and then he ended up swapping opponents on like a week's notice or 2 weeks' notice, and fought Jacare, who's an even harder fight than Hermanson, and knocked him out off of his back in the first round. If that's not a case,
when does that happen? When does Jacare get knocked
also
out?
this guy talks shit. He's exciting. He's got a great style.
Yeah.
Got
that kung fu background.
Yeah, he is just that kind of guy that you want to see fighting the Israels and the Whitakers and stuff. Like he was, floating around outside of the top 15 of middleweight. Lost his, the last fight of last year for him was against Brendan Allen, and he lost that fight, and then just made a spectacular turnaround this year. 5-0. Not my, I would say the beginning of my argument against that is none of those fighters were ranked. Is it still impressive? 4 out of the 5 fights were finishes? Absolutely.
Yep.
He weighed in 6 times between May and December. Fantastic. And also, as I said, he's made a case for himself each time because he talks a lot of shit in the cage. He's exciting. His style is very friendly to the casual audience. There's
nothing better than somebody who backs up the shit talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's good shit
absolutely.
talk.
Special
So
thing.
it's just
there's
nothing about the guy that's
criteria for fighting.
You don't. There's nothing about him you don't like.
I
forward to seeing him fight
agree.
next
I've
year.
been a big fan of this guy for a long time. Like before this year, I remember listening to him on a podcast, and I just loved the interview. I loved hearing the kind of cockiness and the attitude that he had. And I was like, I'm going to keep an eye on this guy, the Trailblazer. And I watched his fights throughout 2019. He had some success. As I said, he came up short against Brendan Allen. Kind of broke my heart because I thought that might have been his chance to sort of leapfrog into those big names, that upper echelon. And this whole year, he just took a bunch of fights that were not really going to do a lot for him, and he made do with what he had. And
Sometimes that's what Dana likes.
Yeah,
And you know the Dana White
exactly.
story about Big Mouth?
yeah, man, the Big Mouth story is fucking. I'm so glad that they put that in the build up to the Jacare fight, because that's something that he did in an interview that I saved on my phone. I mean, must have been a couple of months ago now, but I'm so glad they used that for the promo, because that's the perfect way to promo the Big Mouth getting his debut against Santos after winning his fight on Contender and not getting drafted to the UFC. I know.
Nobody wants to take the Santos fight on short notice, and Dana White's, all right, I'll call Big Mouth. See if Big Mouth will take the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And Holden takes the fight, and then the rest is history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. And the other side of the coin, though, to the Kevin Holland argument with the 5-0 for this year is Figueiredo's. I guess you would say it's kind of 4-0, but it's not.
3-0 and it's 3-1-0.
4 title fights, 3 finishes, knockout, submission, and then he has a draw, which probably would have been a win had not the point deduction been in there. Still a close fight, but that's one of those ones where I look at it like, yes, the strength of the schedule is not as high with the 5 wins, but you got 4 title fights.
And his last 2 were very close together as well, might I add.
And he back-to-back pay-per-views.
Yeah.
There's caveats on both sides, right? So first things first, the first title fight, he missed weight. That's not good, but he won. Devastatingly,
Very
beat the
convincingly.
fucking shit out of poor Joey Benavidez. And everyone was kind of rooting for Joey as well. That was one of those, the narrative where like Joey Benavidez, this is the finally gets his chance to win the title, like it's always eluded him, and Figure was just having none of that. So
Yeah, well Benavidez has got Megan
knocked him
Olivier, so
out.
he's got the real prize, let's be honest.
I mean, Benavidez bounced off of him like he was just made out of steel. So he beat the shit out of Benavidez and knocked him out. They collided heads, but it was actually Joey's fault.
Yeah.
And then he fought him again. They rematched it. He made weight this time. He won the belt. He knocked him down and submitted him this time. Just nearly popped his head like a little pimple. And then he fought Perez, UFC 255 headliner. Wild fight, first round, crazy exchanges. Beat him like in some crazy scramble and submitted him in the first round. And then the next pay-per-view, 3 weeks later, fucking fought Brandon Moreno. And as you said, went to a draw, but kind of won.
And finished with one of the best fights.
Yeah, and finishing the year off with one of the best fights of the year. Maybe the second best.
So it's like, what do you score? Do you score the 5-0 and the way that Kevin Holland has like put himself out into the media space as well? He's
big
just
breakout star.
He's entertaining as like no other, really. Or do you give it to Figueiredo, who's had 3 wins and a very entertaining draw.
But Figueiredo
back to back, very close.
Figueiredo's become a
wins at the end.
staple name of that division, where like it's so hard to become something at flyweight when it's that division where it doesn't get a lot of hype. The name value for instance, the long reigning champion in DJ, he just was never able to get over in the fans' eyes, in the UFC's eyes, and he left after he lost to Cejudo, and Cejudo had to build this kind of cringe gimmick, the Triple C bullshit King of Cringe thing to really kind of sell the flyweight division and quote unquote save it. I don't believe that he saved it. I think Davison Figueiredo saved it, to be honest, because no one has come out of this division with more prowess, with more like the scare factor of this guy. Like he's this terrifying force in this division where he doesn't speak a lot and he doesn't have to build this whole cringe persona. He has just built this, God of War.
I think it's
presence.
I think it's
from fighting.
I think it's a credit to Cejudo and Figueiredo, but I think Figueiredo is pound for pound scary. Like he's across all weight classes. He's scary. So like it brings attention to flyweights, and
I think he's going to clear flyweight out. And once he's done maybe a couple more fights, he's going to move up to 35, and he's going to be a big fucking problem for those guys too.
Yeah.
So who do we give it to? I mean, the Whiffie's got to go to one of them. I stand strong on Figueiredo being with the 4 title fights. That's hard to argue with, but as I said,
he missed weight and there was a draw compared to like Holland, who has 5 wins, 4 of them knockouts, and then 1 split decision.
Yeah,
you guys ain't doing no draws for the Whiffies.
Hey, we're giving out trophies. I'm happy to.
The Darren Stewart fight could have been a draw too if you had given that last round a 10-8, which it kind of was.
Yeah.
So it would be a draw on there too. But I mean, we got to give out the Whiffie to one. Doodle, we might have to throw it to you, man.
We've laid out off to the CEO of Live from the Couches.
Yeah.
Look, and as you guys just said, that is incredibly hard because talking about the difference in competition versus the output. It's almost quality, quantity in a situation. But at the same time, I've seen some of Kevin Holland's, like his last knockout was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And just the way his persona is, that makes it hard. I think that I have to go just based off the record of 5-0.
Come on, son.
I think that I have to go Kevin Holland.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Let's go Trailblazer.
But there's 100% out there. Like, I mean, I would have said draw, but since you guys are really,
I would say draw as well, and I'm still we're not giving out trophies to anyone right now.
We had to lay out our claim for both guys.
Phenomenal fighters, so they're
Kevin
both
Holland
winners.
is probably out of the two of them the more marketable guy. That comes 100%. Out of that as well. Like he's come from literally not being ranked at all. And coming off of a loss in his fight at the end of the last year to now 5-0 and potentially only 1 or 2 fights away from a title fight with Izzy, which would be a big deal.
The language barrier does make it hard for Figueiredo to be good on the mic. We know this.
Yeah. But it is the fighting, the merit that gets him across, which is something that a lot of the fighters at flyweight, I guess all of them, have not been able to get.